It was morning, a summer morning. One of those ordinary summer mornings that only happen in June. But despite their ordinariness, such mornings are quite deceptive, just like the month of June they belong to. Because it's in this month that you haven't yet adjusted to the rhythm of summer, haven't realized that it's already begun, and that there's no need to rush anywhere, trying to gather yourself and get in the right mindset on the go. No need to think ahead, holding everything under the sun in your head. But by the time you realize you're free, June quietly slips away, giving way to the next month, July, and you, without even grasping it, have already lost a third of the summer. The light, persistently seeping through the curtains, desperately tried to find a path to my face, eager to wake me from my sweet, carefree slumber. No matter how hard I tried, alas, I couldn't resist those yellow sunbeams for long. I had to accept their terms, slowly stretching and rubbing my sleepy, blurry eyes. Then, my left hand instinctively reached for the phone, fumbling to find it on the nightstand surface. 5 minutes past 11? Not exactly ideal for today's plans, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Breakfast? I suspect I won't have time to get hungry, but the chance of losing precious time is very real. So, I'll just brush my teeth. After all, who knows who I might end up talking to? Always being ready for anything is a pretty good tactic. And what about my outfit? Well, to be honest, that white sundress is calling to me, begging to be worn. Well, I won't hold myself back. As for what to bring, I'll take a small bag, and inside will go my phone and keys. Nothing else is needed. Outside, it was warm enough. The sun, having gained strength since morning, was almost at its zenith, heating up the city's concrete. There weren't many people around. Clearly, not everyone enjoyed this kind of heat, and most preferred to stay in their homes. But that didn't bother me one bit. I knew what I was getting into. The asphalt was covered in fluff, which tried to lift the spirits of winter lovers, resembling real snow. I approached an old, half-broken bench, still untouched by sunlight. Luckily, an oak tree grew above it, kindly inviting weary travelers to cool off in its shade. In the middle of the courtyard, on a small hill, children were playing. Now, they're the ones who don't care about the weather. They're interested in entirely different things, often unrelated to reality. Suddenly, one girl noticed a boy on a scooter heading her way. Shouting, "Mark!" at the top of her lungs, she ran toward him. And the white prince, with a dirt-smeared but incredibly happy face, skillfully stopped his scooter, sweeping his beauty into a hug. Then he began listening to her chatter about some trendy dress her friend had. Does childhood love exist? Absolutely. No matter what anyone says, children, above all, are far more sensitive than adults. And who, if not children, would know what love really is? Children don't get offended by words. They don't care about material things. They don't argue over someone forgetting to change a light bulb in the living room. Don't dump their problems on others. Don't impose total control. Don't fight for a week only to later figure out the reason for the argument. Children aren't adults. They only care about feelings, nothing more. After sitting for another 5 minutes, I stood up from the bench with a smile, trying to take in as much of this colorful world as I could, and headed toward the school. On the way, in another courtyard, I witnessed an amusing scene. A mother, practically dragging her child across the ground, was yelling at him, scolding for something. A few seconds later, a car pulled into the courtyard, sparking wild fear in the woman. She jumped onto the grass, letting go of the child's hand. then quickly came to her senses and yanked the child back to her by the collar. The car passed, and the woman started shouting even louder. I just shook my head silently, hurrying past the pair. Strange, these people, aren't they? They'll yell at others for their own fears, without even thinking about it, without even noticing. And there was the school, usually deserted in the summer, covered in cracks, with peeling paint and crumbling plaster. And no one will fix it, right? Of course not. Those funds are easier to pocket than to use for the intended purpose. Over there, behind one of those rusty tables, just as destroyed as the bench in my courtyard, sat a trio of unkempt drunks, laughing loudly over something in their deep voices. Poor souls. In their lives they've probably seen nothing, spent their last coins on booze, wasted their time on nothing. And now, with almost nothing left, they pitifully live out their days, caring neither about their appearance nor their health. Next, my path led me through a small park. Thankfully, my favorite spot was free, and I could sit down and, with a smile, blend into my surroundings. The distant hum of the highway sounded like the buzzing of a giant beehive. The frequent screech of brake pads at the traffic lights scared off all living things, and the occasional passing trams scattered flocks of pigeons gathered on the tracks. The rustling leaves were pleasantly soothing, but the cloudy sky kept them from fully doing their job, drawing my gaze upward and pulling me deep into my dreams. All of this brought just one feeling, an absolute, unbreakable connection with this vast world, a world where you are nothing but a tiny grain of sand, yet one that could become the key in the battle between the two halves of an hourglass. I often walk through poorer neighborhoods, and no, not to reassure myself that I grew up in better conditions. I was driven purely by curiosity and pity. It wasn't uncommon to see me sitting by a completely unfamiliar building 5 kilometers from home. I'd look at the old, unpainted balconies from which people sometimes leaned out with cigarettes. I'd play staring contests with stray cats and dogs, watch children playing in sandboxes, games that often ended in tears because someone's sand castle got trampled, or simply think about eternity. I genuinely felt sorry for these people who'd seen nothing in their lives, set no goals, had no ambitions. People who, at 20, already burdened themselves with a child and started living their remaining years not for themselves, but for someone else. Some did it out of love, others out of foolishness. There are always many cases and variations, but as a rule, they all lead to one thing: death, cunning and unstoppable. It's like a die with 1,000 sides, one of which marks the end of your existence. And every day you roll that die. In childhood, maybe once or twice a day. But the further you walk along the path of life, the more dice you roll each day. Some are unlucky, and the fatal side comes up at 50, while others live to a ripe old age without ever landing in danger. Many fear death, but alas, everyone is powerless before it. You can only delay it, never escape it. Every creature begins its life with one condition, that its life will, sooner or later, come to an end. And when that happens, is a matter of luck, a personal affair for each of us. Finally, my journey brought me to the riverbank, the final stop on my route. I carefully took off my sandals, holding them in my left hand, and slowly walked across the sand, stepping into the water up to my calves. It was cool, but not cold, more of a refreshing. A sudden gust of wind sent shivers down my spine and ruffled my hair. Soon, the wind died down, and the sun began warming me again with its rays. Closing my eyes, I spread my arms wide and started laughing loudly, drawing suspicious looks from those around me. Strange people, haven't they ever heard laughter before? After laughing to my heart's content, I opened my eyes slightly, squinting with pleasure. Perhaps this is why we're giving life, not to dwell on worries about the past or future, but to enjoy the moment. If you constantly think about another day, whether it's already happened or is yet to come, you will never be able to focus on the present. What are politics, wars, economics? Aren't they all about building plans for the future? But if you live only in the present, then there is no past or future, right? Or is there? In any case, everyone has their own truth, and we have no right to impose ours on others. We can only try to show the perfection and superiority of our truth, nothing more. And then others might not even notice how they will start believing in it too. I spent my evening with a book, barely distracted by anything else. When the clock struck past midnight, I carefully set the book on the nightstand. Turning off the light, I rolled onto my side with delight, thanking yesterday for what it brought me. A smile.